Well, Tyler, I see that you are taking your safety from electromagnetism quite seriously now. You've decided not to cover up. You're now shielding your wall, or at least a portion of your wall.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about it. This just makes a lot more sense. I should have done this from the beginning, honestly. Yeah, I mean, I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress, as you can tell. But I think there's a transformer in that back area there, so that's why
Ooh,
that got to protect myself from that corner specifically.
makes so much sense. That doesn't sound like a fire hazard whatsoever. Getting this nice metallic blanket pressed right against the fuse panel or electrical panel, whatever you have going on back there.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, it should be fine.
Yeah, I'll let you know if I start seeing smoke from behind you, but at least you'll be
Okay.
safe from electromagnetism.
Yes, that is the important thing.
Absolutely. Hello and welcome to Ignore the Bell. My name is Nathan,
And I'm Tyler.
and we are talking Better Call Saul Season 2. So if you are unaware, then we've already done a discussion of Better Call Saul Season 1, and we're going to go through all of the seasons for Better Call Saul. I have watched everything with Better Call Saul up until the season that's on the air right now, which is Season 5, I want to say.
Yeah.
I'm not watching new episodes as they're coming on TV in part because I'm busy right now. But I've watched up to season 4, and I've also watched all of Breaking Bad. You, on the other hand, have not watched Breaking Bad, but you have watched the first 4 seasons of Better Call Saul.
First 3 seasons of Better Call Saul. I have
Oh, you
not
haven't
seen
even seen
season
season
four
4.
yet.
Okay.
No.
Well, there we go. So, for people, if there's anybody else who is possibly watching this podcast, who I want to say on Earth, who has taken the same approach as you, who is watching Better Call Saul, but has not watched Breaking Bad, if there's anybody else like you, they get to identify with your position as you're watching and talking about Better Call Saul. And then
Yeah.
for people who have watched Breaking Bad first, like me and everyone else, that you get to identify with me because there's definitely a whole lot of references. I mean, I think it's an interesting tact that you've taken because you're going to get something different because you don't know where this is going and you don't even necessarily know which characters show up later on. And you've said before though that like it's kind of obvious that the camera will linger when new characters get introduced, and it seems obvious to you that that must be somebody from Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I mean we'll get into it a little bit more during the discussion. But yeah, it's I don't know, there are certain characters who I'm just like, oh yeah, yeah, like either I can tell based on the way that it's framed or just, I've
Sure.
seen enough clips or things from Breaking Bad to know that a character is from that series. So,
Right.
yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll get into season 2 in just a minute here, but we do have a sponsor for today's podcast. So, our sponsor for today is Wacky Waving Arm Flailing Inflatable Lawyer Man. The most garish
Yay!
colored dress shirts, the most outrageous ties, the craziest suits. He doesn't flush, even when it's number 2. He's an environmentalist. Do you love music? Then you'll love his bagpipe skills. Wacky Waving Arm Flailing Inflatable Lawyer Man. The sooner you buy him, the sooner you can fire him. Get yours today. All
Oh,
right.
I am so glad to have them as a
Me
sponsor.
too. I've got one out in front of my house right now. The neighbors hate it, but I love it. He's not coming down.
Yeah, absolutely. How could anybody, hate it? I mean, I get it, but at the same time, come on.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not selling anything except for fun.
Yeah.
That's it. All right, folks. I hope you enjoy.
Oh man, I wish this discussion could go on forever.
All right, so we were talking Better Call Saul season 2, and I just finished rewatching that clip, at least portions of the clip, where Jimmy gets the inspiration from the wacky waving arm flailing inflatable tube man of how to get fired without cause, but just because of a personality fit. He is in like the most interesting position, and I want to say that that whole sequence is easily my favorite sequence from the entire series, maybe from any show ever.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It is so enjoyable to watch. From the moment that, he sees that tube man, and he's just like, you just see the expression on his face where he's just like, oh, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it starts sinking in, like the wheels start turning, and he's like, right. And the way that it's using split screens, that like the crazier Jimmy gets, the crazier the tube man is going.
Right.
Just the wind is rocking this guy back and forth. And
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
yeah.
the bright colored outfits. What was it that that I'm trying to remember now. I think he said migraine of the eyes or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I think that is.
He's like that migraine of the eyes that
Like
you
a
call an
visual
outfit.
migraine or something like that.
Yeah.
Optical, maybe it was optical migraine.
Oh, yeah, I think that might have been it. Oh my goodness.
But yeah.
So fantastic. From that to the juicer in the office.
Juice in the office, instructing the cleaner how to vacuum, that you have to vacuum backwards, and explaining all of it in broken Spanish. And the guy's like, dude, I'm from Michigan.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, the bagpipes.
Right. And then
I'm just blowing off steam, just like you told me.
And then not flushing, and when his boss is like, I don't want to know who it was, and he's like, it was me. I just said, Jimmy, I don't want to know who it was. That there's something like there's a dynamic going on there that is comedy gold, and I think it's the idea that Jimmy is playing the buffoon, but doing it in a way where he's completely oblivious. Like he thinks that he's genuinely following the rules and that he's being helpful and he's being a good member of the firm, right? That like, intentionally trying to be good while of course secretly he's trying to be as obnoxious as possible, but making it obvious that, like, do you know what I mean? He's trying to disguise the fact that he's trying to be obnoxious.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. It is. Oh man, there are so many layers going on there.
Right.
That's what it is. Is that if this were if you were to just show this sequence to somebody, right?
Yeah.
No other context. They have no idea
Right.
who Jimmy is or anything, and you're just like, okay, yeah, watch this sequence. They're going to be like, this guy is such an idiot. Like, what is he doing? Why is he doing all of these things?
He's just Michael Scott.
Right. And you'd just be like, this is just not enjoyable at all because it's just so unrealistic.
That's
but
right.
because you know that it's like, yeah, but he's putting this on,
That's
you
right.
know, these multiple layers of it. Oh, it just works so well.
There's a certain amount of, I think, wish fulfillment when you're watching this, where, you know what I mean? It's like, boy, I would love to be able to do stuff like that in the workplace.
Yeah.
Because you get to constantly pass it off as, what? I thought this was helpful. I love that kind of comedy where somebody's playing innocent when they are clearly, being, rude or inconsiderate, but like they play it off as though, oh, this is bothering you? I'm so sorry. I had no idea.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like a better analogy is Jim from The Office with Dwight, where he's just, like, oh, I'm so sorry. How would I know that this,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very much the way Jim acts all the time, but I'm saying, like, but we're in on the joke. But I'm saying, if you were watching what you had said, if you're watching Jimmy without having seen anything else in the show, then I'm saying he's basically a Michael Scott character, except Michael Scott is what Jimmy is doing here, except there's no second layer. There's no intention to try to be a bad personality fit to be dismissed, without cause, but just because of the personality issue. Because Jimmy, of course, he ends up in this what seems like a no-win situation, right? Because he hates it there. This is just a refresher for people in case it's been a little while since you've seen it. But he does not want to work at Davis and Maine anymore. Yeah. But if he leaves, he's going to lose his signing bonus. And if he gets fired for being incompetent, then he doesn't get to keep his signing bonus. So instead, you end up sort of like what kids do when they really carefully follow the rules and they go, well, what you said was this. And then they just start twisting all the rules, very much like what a lawyer does.
Yes. Yeah,
It
absolutely.
shows him actually being a really good lawyer when he's looking at his employment contract. And you go, oh, this dude can really read contracts.
Yes. I see you've been brushing up on your contract law. Yeah, no, it is the ultimate passive aggressive flex.
Yeah, it really is. It really
it's just so enjoyable to watch.
Yeah,
Oh man.
absolutely.
And I gotta tell you, I love so many of the outfits that he wears. Like I know that they don't fit at all in the
Oh,
office that he's in, but I'm like, I would love to wear those suits.
then you'll love Breaking Bad because
Okay.
yeah, that's basically a teaser for Breaking Bad is that uh, not all the time, but Jimmy, when he becomes Saul Goodman, then he becomes a caricature of a lawyer, of like that TV lawyer with those ridiculous commercials
Mm.
who you know what I mean, an ambulance chaser and that kind of more like I don't even know. I don't even want to say like a real estate agent, but sort of like, and this is going to be for Torontonians, like Russell Oliver from Oliver
Right.
Jewelers, right?
Yes.
Cash man.
Absolutely.
Like a
Yeah,
caricature
no,
of a salesman of
right. That's really interesting. And I kind of wondered about that. But yeah, like I wasn't like really aware if or I didn't really know if that was going to be the case, but at the same time I'm like, he bought all those suits. He's definitely gonna wear them later.
right, right. And it's so this is kind of the whole, we're getting to see glimpses of Saul Goodman in
Mm,
this season, far more so than in season one, but he's not fully committed to it because we see him being a con man, but being a con man in a different way in season two.
right.
Because you see him being a con man back in um, what's the name in Illinois, right? He's in Illinois, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
I can't remember the town.
Cicero?
Cicero, yeah. So you get to see him doing like these little cons in this small town that are you would find in a bar, right?
Right.
Some con man who's in a bar, but not a con man who's a lawyer who's doing long, more complex cons, more sophisticated, and in ways where you would be less suspicious of him, right? Because
Right.
you should be suspicious of somebody who wants to bet on something in a bar,
Right. Yeah.
right? But less so if you're a fancy resort and they're dressed a little bit more nicely. You know what I mean? Less so
Mhm.
of a lawyer who seems very professional, that you shouldn't think this person's going to con me, right? I mean, obviously, you should always be a little bit suspicious, but
Right.
um,
Yeah.
I'm saying that we see him doing different types of cons in this, and he's got his ring from his friend. What's his friend's name? It's been a little while since I watched season one.
Oh dear. I don't remember. Um, oh, that's terrible. Um, yeah, but yeah, no, I love the detail of the ring being there. And that you get at least one brilliant moment of him like looking at the ring and realizing
Exactly.
that he's like, yeah, I need to hold on to that part of me, that con man part of me. Um,
Right.
even as a lawyer. He says like, you know, if I can't do it my way, then there's no sense in doing it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, that's admirable.
Right.
Um, because yeah, you should be honest in the things that you do,
Uh,
even if being honest means that you are dishonest.
yes. I mean, I guess I agree with what you're saying
It's,
there.
it's
Um,
hard to phrase that, but yeah.
he No, I do know what you mean. at least he is embracing who he is, and he's not at war with himself, and he's not putting on any pretense of being something that he's not. And so there is a certain amount of sincerity involved in that, even knowing that this person is not necessarily trustworthy, right? It's basically stabbing you in the front instead of stabbing you in the back, right?
Right. Yeah.
That but yeah, and his friend is Marco, by the way. I looked it up. And so, but it seems like that's part of it, is that he's made this because not just a commitment to Marco, but because Marco admired what Jimmy can do as a con man. That there is a certain, I mean, like, the other term for it besides con man is con artist, and you get to see him being an actual artist in a lot of ways, where you can't really teach somebody to do what Jimmy's able to do, right? Some of the schemes that he thinks of, the way he's able to be spontaneous and improvise in the midst of a situation, that's not even something that you can teach. You could teach somebody how to do the setup and everything else, but his improv skills within a con are incredible, and they're admirable, even if it's a kind of a terrible thing to do.
Yeah, no, he is. He's very, very intelligent, but it's just, what he chooses to use his intelligence for. Then you kind of go,
and that's the
you're
thing.
Just like, that was really smart.
Absolutely. And that's exactly like what Chuck says, because I'm pretty sure it's in season 2, where Chuck says, when he's describing the entire plot of when he's passed out and he's explaining this, because this is the big thrust of season 2, of you've got Kim, who's in the room, and Jimmy's in the room, and then Chuck is accusing Jimmy of doctoring the documents that he had for Mesa Verde, where he changes the numbers for the address, right? That he goes to an all-night copy shop and switches them around and then replaces them back with the original file, and et cetera, right? That he does all of this work. And then Jimmy's like, this sounds like a lot of work. And he's like, no one would ever accuse you of being lazy, something along those lines, or you've never been accused of being lazy. And that's the interesting thing.
Every other sin in the book, but not
yes,
that one.
exactly. Yes, thank you for reminding me, because he does bring that up, not like everything else, but not that. And the interesting thing is that you look at Jimmy and you say, because he feels so inferior to Chuck, and he wants Chuck's respect, right? He really does, but he can never earn it, even becoming a lawyer. And they kind of make it seem as though he's maybe not smart enough to get into a good law school, or he's not hardworking enough. But then that's at least season 1. But by season 2, I don't think there's much question about that. That it establishes that he's incredibly intelligent and he's incredibly hardworking.
Yes.
So so for him to not be able to get into a good law school, it would not be because of a lack of intelligence or a lack of hard work. It's a lack of temperament, that he just doesn't want to do a traditional approach to law. That if he were living in a lawless society, right, like in a trade and barter society where it's like anarcho-capitalism, I'm not saying those two are the same thing. I'm thinking, no, actually, if he was living in an anarcho-capitalist country, he would be ideally suited for it, where there are no laws. It's just, there's no laws regulating business in any way. It's just businesses can do whatever they want, and it's, buyer beware, right? That he would be so ridiculously successful in that kind of thing if he had no laws imposing on him. But even when there are laws, he's so clever at being able to find loopholes and little workarounds, or even doing things that are technically illegal, but there's no way he would get caught if it weren't for Chuck.
Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, absolutely. And okay, we have to talk about his the whole switching the numbers thing. from 1261 to 1216.
Mhm.
My goodness, he thinks of that instantly. He is like Jimmy thinks of it
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
instantly. He did not know that those files were going to be there. He did
No.
not, think of anything like that. He opens them up and he's like, yeah, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Yep.
And he knows that it's going to work.
Yeah.
Like he would be impossible to beat in chess because he's thinking like 18 moves ahead. The
I
fact that
mean, like maybe, but I guess what I'm is trying to point out is that season two really establishes the artistry of what he does, and I'm saying that
Mhm,
there's this improvisation involved in it that
yes,
because chess uh, like there are a set of rules and both people know what game they're playing, but
that's true. Yeah,
Jimmy excels when the other person, when his opponent doesn't even know what game he's playing,
right.
right? With
Yeah,
his
yeah.
his boss, Ed Begley Jr., Begley Jr. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but I forget the character's name. But at Davis
Cliff,
and Maine, Cliff,
Clifford.
yeah.
Yeah,
How Cliff doesn't know what game initially Jimmy is even playing. He's like, is he just weird? Like, what is he doing? And then when he finally clues in, he's just like, okay, he's just not going to stop.
right.
That when he finally figures it out, it's already too late. Jimmy has already damaged the firm in multiple ways
Hmm.
that
Yeah,
he doesn't have much choice. And so that's what Jimmy does really well. And so that thinking spontaneously of coming up with that idea on the spot, not knowing, as you point out, that the Mesa Verde documents are going to be there, not knowing that he's ever going to have this opportunity where Chuck is going to have them and he's going to be completely passed out. Um,
yeah,
and so that's where he excels. And
yes, yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I apologize because I think I interrupted you.
Yeah, no worries. That's basically what I was going to say. Is just like the fact that he was able to, come up with that so quickly that he, was improvising that whole
Yeah,
time. That, he's just like, okay, well, what can I do with these files that are here?
right.
Because he is upset uh, that Chuck managed to steal Mesa Verde back from Kim. Understandably so.
Yeah.
Um,
This is like the ethics in this season get so dicey on both sides, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That on the one hand, Chuck is a completely he's exactly what a lawyer should be, what we expect him to be. He operates well within the law, but he's
Mhm.
also ruthless when it comes to the competition. And
Yes.
he will outwork anybody else. He will psychologically manipulate clients into signing with him. Like what he
Hmm.
says to both of the president and the legal counsel for Mesa Verde.
Yes.
I should have the characters in front of me. I apologize.
Paige is the one. I
Yeah,
want to say that is it Kenny is the other one?
I think so.
Okay.
Um, that when Chuck is talking to them and they're in the conference room and he's saying, "Here are all the reasons why you want to go with Kim,"
Yeah.
and just singing her praises, but doing it in a way that if you're just listening to him literally and you're not reading between the lines, then he's just saying nothing but nice things about his competition. But
Yes.
ultimately, he is cutting her legs out from under her
Hmm.
and doing it with like I say, it's psychological manipulation with flattery and saying how she's younger and, like, of course, she doesn't have to worry about all these old laws and this old way of doing it, like establishing, like, not only
Yeah.
do I know how things work now, I know how things have worked before. I understand the process of how we've gotten to this point legally. And I understand legal precedents that she has no clue about
Hmm.
because she's still fairly new to being a lawyer and she's not going to have this entire firm behind her, right?
Right.
That he's ruthlessly competitive and he should be. But at the same time, there's a certain amount of look, like HHM does not need the business. They like
Yeah.
they're doing fine. You know what I mean? Like it's Will they welcome the business? Sure, but they don't desperately need it the way Kim does.
Yeah.
And the way they forced her out, the way Howard was punishing her multiple times, it happens that because
Mhm.
of her relationship with Jimmy, and then she realizes that she's probably never going to become a partner at the firm. So
Yeah.
she's got no future there. So it's like, well, you guys forced her out. The only way that she got back in was by getting Mesa Verde, working like crazy to try to get this client that she's only, I think they say that she's a second year associate at this point, or a third year. Anyway, she's whatever it is that she's
Yeah, I'm trying to think now. I know that it was. I feel like she was fourth
fourth
year.
fourth year associate, something like
Yeah.
that, right? That they make it clear it's unusual for somebody with her lack of years to pull in a client that's going to bring in the firm $250,000 a year in billings. That
Yeah.
that's essentially like what it comes down to. And so she does that to get back in Howard's good books. And then it still comes undone where she
Yeah.
still gets punished because then Jimmy does the commercial with the old lady, right?
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
ready for my close-up, Mr. McGill, instead of DeVille from Sunset Boulevard. That reference is so wonderful. as she's coming down the stairs on her little like chair elevator thing. I forget what those things are called.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Oh
Because
man,
that's Sunset Boulevard. Have you seen Sunset Boulevard?
I have not.
Oh,
I
okay,
don't think
but that is
so.
exactly, it's a Billy Wilder film. I love Sunset Boulevard, and you've got well, it's terrible that I can't remember her name, but you've got her coming down the stairs. She's the silent film actress who's trying to make it now that like 20 years later, 30 years later, with Hollywood having sound and all of this, she's going to have her big comeback, right? And then she's like, "I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeVille," right? And like this old lady's doing the same thing except sliding down the stairs on the
Right.
chair. It's
Yeah.
amazing. And so he does this commercial, airs it, and then it's like, "Did you know about this?" And she's like, "Yeah," but and she was still trying to cover for Jimmy. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that is. It's such an interesting thing that happens there because Kim doesn't even really get a chance to explain herself. That they pull her in, um, prepared to punish her.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
and that, she, even if she had said like, oh, I like, because all she had to say really was, I thought he showed it to Cliff.
yeah.
Um, and then it would have been like, oh, well, how can we believe you and all this? Like, they still would have punished her. So it didn't really matter whether she said that or not. But, like, because
They
yeah,
it was too late for her because Chuck's opinion of Jimmy has like it was already so poisoned by that point that the
right,
fact that she was in a relationship with Jimmy, that whether it was romantic or not, but just the fact that they were good friends, that showed a lack of judgment on her part. And
right,
that's why they can no longer trust her. And the fact that she would have any interest in maintaining a relationship, romantic or otherwise, with Jimmy just was too much for certainly for Chuck, and then it became too much for Howard as well. Where it didn't
right,
matter what she said, it didn't matter whether she was telling the truth or not. It's that they couldn't trust her judgment anymore,
right.
um,
Yeah,
and so as a result of that, they then punish her. So then she ends up essentially getting pushed out, and then she tries to get Mesa Verde when she realizes that she can't possibly stay at the firm because she's got no future there, and that she decides not to go with what is it? Something in Coakley,
yeah,
Schweigert. What is it?
yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah, something.
Yeah, Schwa something in Coakley, I want to say, and Schweigert and Coakley. I don't know. And so
Something
when
like
yeah, so then when she um, turns them down and then realizes that she wants to go independent and start her own firm and all of that, then she tries to get Mesa Verde, and it's like there's a certain amount of she earned it,
right.
right? Because
Yeah,
she did. They would
yeah,
not have that account if it was not for her. And she's the one who already had the relationship with Paige, who was their in-house counsel. And that she worked all of her contacts to be able to get that. And then it really, I think, was a way to be able to get back. This is my cat. He blends in quite well, but he also insists on being part of the show. So it's that Chuck wants to get at Jimmy through Kim.
Yeah.
And so since it seems so difficult to hurt Jimmy, and Chuck is already upset that Jimmy has got this job with the other firm, right, at Davis and Maine and all of that, that even if Jimmy gets in hot water with the other firm, it doesn't really matter because Jimmy can get out of anything. But maybe if you attack Kim, because Kim can't get out of, everything the way Jimmy can, and she wants to be a traditional lawyer, she wants to become a partner. So let's hurt her in order to get to Jimmy. But then because Jimmy then is trying to defend her, there's a certain amount of, he's kind of in the right for getting the account back by any means possible. But at the same time, not only is it illegal, you know what I mean? Because you could say, it's definitely illegal. And you could say, what's the damage? Not much, right? Mm-hmm. That the bank, they want to open up this branch, is going to be at least a 6-week delay. That means that it's 6 more weeks without turning a profit. And, they're not a national bank. So it's not like they can, that's just a blip for them. That's like an accounting error. It's 6 weeks of profits at a certain branch. That is going to hurt them. But nobody's going to go bankrupt. You know what I mean? Right. Nobody's really going to get hurt all that much. So you're like, well, it really doesn't. It's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. So it's a tricky thing in order to know. This is where I'm saying that the ethics become dicey, because technically Chuck has not done anything illegal, but he's done something that's probably unethical. And then what Jimmy does is definitely illegal, but I'm not even sure that it's really unethical.
Yeah.
Because did Chuck deserve to have them?
No.
So I'm going, and Kim did deserve to have them. So even if it's illegal the way she gets them back, I think it was kind of ethical, at least in comparison to what Chuck does. And I think maybe that's what this season is doing, is it's showing that Jimmy is ethical, but he's criminal. But then Chuck is unethical, and he's completely law-abiding. That it shows what Mike talks about in season 1, where he says, I've seen good criminals and bad cops. And it seems like that's the theme that's being played upon here. It's that, Jimmy is a good criminal lawyer. He generally is a good person. The people he goes after are people who kind of have it coming. Right?
Yeah.
The ones that he cons, at least in this season, when he cons the, ridiculous stockbroker, for instance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's who cares? That guy's and he does come up in Breaking Bad, by the way. And he is more, he's so much more obnoxious in Breaking Bad. So much more obnoxious in Breaking Bad. And it's not because he's mad at Jimmy and Kim, or what are the names they go with?
Oh my god. Giselle?
Victor? Yeah, Victor and Giselle. Yeah. It's not because he's mad at them. He was just, he comes in jerk. He only has one mode. He's just a jerk.
Okay.
So anyway, but Jimmy, he goes after people who have money, are obnoxious, and ultimately it's if they're dumb enough to fall for it, then who cares? But he's not taking advantage of people who genuinely have low intelligence. It's people who are puffed up, are full of pride, and are vain, and do have money to spare.
Yeah, even with Sandpiper Crossing and, the solicitation, things, right? Then he's he's helping these people. And
he's genuinely helping the elderly against big corporation.
Yeah, and yet it's, illegal for him to be doing this. And he's but but
That's
he's
exactly it.
helping them.
Yeah, that he's actually
The
doing something
reason
that's
for the law is
right.
to protect the elderly, and he is protecting the elderly by breaking the law. Like it's...
That's the thing. And I don't even feel like it's so much trying to make us question the the law itself
Mhm.
or ethics itself. I don't think that's their purpose. I think it's the purpose here is to play on that theme that Mike brings up, like I say from
Yeah.
season one, that it shows that Jimmy really is at at least at this point, at his core, he is an ethical person who is doing good things even if it means having to do something illegal. And so there's a certain admiration that you have for him. And then Chuck is so full of pride and believes that because he follows everything to the letter of the law, that there's nothing that anyone can do, that nobody can speak ill of him. And it's like, no, but you can follow the law and still be a really scuzzy person.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, it is done so well in this season. Yeah. I don't really have anything else to add for that because it's just, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a much more straightforward season than season one. We have
Mm,
less jumping in time.
yeah. The only major one is when we get to see uh I guess Chuck's wife or girlfriend at least.
It's his wife, I believe, Rebecca.
Okay. Yeah. Right, yeah, because they talk about the wedding, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, and that's the only, real flashback that we get,
we
as
get
far
a
as I can remember.
no, we get a couple in the family convenience store, the corner
Oh,
store
that's right.
when
Yeah, for
when they're
sure.
when Jimmy's a kid. You don't see Chuck, but you do see Jimmy when he's a kid and how he starts, as Chuck puts it, pilfering from the cash register, from the till.
Yeah.
And it's because Jimmy sees this con artist and he sees his dad get exploited. And then he says to his dad, like all the, con artists and whatever else know that you're such an easy mark and they all come in here when they want an easy bit of cash and they just have to tell you a story and you give in, and that Jimmy ultimately loses respect for his dad as a
Hmm.
result of this. And it's not even so much that he respects the con artist who comes in, who then tells him that there are sheep and wolves in this world, and you got to figure out which one you are.
Yeah.
It's not so much that he respects that; it's more just he kind of like comes to this realization that, well, that just seems to be true. I can either
Right.
be like my dad and get taken advantage of my entire life and not be able to take care of my family as a result, because ultimately the business goes under. And it seems as though maybe it's Jimmy's fault. Chuck certainly says that it's Jimmy's fault because Jimmy has been stealing from the cash register, because Jimmy does then take from the cash register after this.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you could say, maybe it is because of his theft from the family business over the years, but maybe not.
Yeah. It
Because if everybody in town knows he can take advantage of the father, right? But in Chuck's head, it's got to be Jimmy and entirely Jimmy. It's like he thinks that
yeah.
Jimmy's the only bad person in the world.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do love those flashbacks, or that flashback, I guess. Because yeah, it works so well in showing this perspective of their dad was not perfect. He was a total sheep, as it were. Like he
Right.
just falls for literally everything. And Jimmy realizes that, yeah, he if he, tries to be, this upstanding person, then
Yeah.
he's just going to be taken advantage of over and over and over again.
Right.
Um, and yeah, like it's honestly it's done so well. Um,
Because does that
yeah,
make their dad a good person, right? That like he's
right.
ethical, but it's like, well, even doing the ethical thing there and saying, if I don't know whether the person is lying to me or not, but if there's a chance that they really are, they really have fallen on hard times and it's an emergency and they do need some money, then it's better to give it knowing that I might be being taken advantage of in case I'm not, that I'd rather be on that side. But it's like, but ultimately he can't support his family because of that. So you say, ooh, well then is that really the ethical thing to do?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, the way that Chuck lays it out, where he says that $14,000 had gone missing over the years. Like, there's no way
I thought he
that.
said 40, but
Oh, maybe. Okay. But yeah, anyway, either way, then there's no way that Jimmy was able to sneak out that much.
that's what I'm saying is I think there's enough doubt that it's not Jimmy's fault, or at least
Yeah.
not entirely his fault.
Hmm.
Because at least at this point, like there's nothing that indicates that Jimmy has got some kind of addiction that would be like he's not a gambler. You know what I mean? He's not spending ridiculous amounts of money. So it's like, well, what would he have done with $40,000 as like a late teen? Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like what was he really doing with that much money?
Yeah.
So it seems like it probably wasn't him or just him, that it was a
Yeah.
combination of things, and in part with their dad just not being much of a businessman and things like that. Um, and yeah, so you do have that flashback. You get the flash forward to him being Gene in
Right.
Nebraska at the
Yeah.
Cinnabon, and there's not much there with that, but
Yeah.
it's just a little nod for people who watch Breaking Bad. Not that it really does anything other than just he's in hiding.
Gotcha.
That's
Yeah.
basically all it's doing, which I feel like is completely obvious to anybody who's watched Breaking Bad or not.
Yeah, and I mean even to me, then like seeing it, and he's like, isn't there like the sign that says like, oh, you can call this number, like call the police or whatever, in order to get you out? And the fact that he doesn't want to call them, then it's like, oh, well, yeah, he doesn't want the police to show up because,
Right.
yeah.
I think it's just the emergency exit which says that it will like alert the
Oh,
police.
right. Yes. Yeah, that's right.
But still, like it's just it seems to me obvious whether you know how or why he's in hiding. It's just he is in hiding. So you have
Yeah.
to flash forward. But aside from that, it's not moving back and forth as much, and you don't have as many storylines as you have in season one, which I outlined at the beginning of the season one podcast that we did.
Yeah.
But then the other big storyline that we have going on in all of this is everything to do with Mike,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
I guess we should get into that.
Yeah. 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 That sounds good.
Um,
Um,
so you've got basically, and just as a recap for people, you've got Mike who was working with, oh, what is the guy's
Price?
name? What's that?
Did you say before that it was Price?
Yes, Price. So he's
Yeah.
working with Price, who's selling, prescription medication
Mhm.
to some kind of pharmaceutical, to Nacho, who is doing this on the side without letting the Salamancas know that he's actually dealing separately and on the side independently. And that Price then, is basically is confident enough that he doesn't need Mike's help. Mike's like, yes, you do. And then it's like, no, I think I'll be fine. And Price is an idiot. And then Nacho gets his home address, and then he robs him. And like, I've got a question for you. Like, he robs him of his baseball cards, right? It's like, my
Yeah.
baseball cards. I want my cards back. Right? I don't. I'm assuming it's a Minnesota accent, but I'm not quite sure. And,
Yeah.
um, and so my question to you, because it kind of goes on from there, but before we get to the rest of it, like, why do you think Nacho robs Price? Like,
Um, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think that for one thing, Price is just kind of an easy mark. Like, why,
yeah, yeah,
why just give him the money for all these, prescription pills when you can just
take it
take
from,
them? Yeah.
yeah.
But the baseball cards part of it is the odd thing where it's just like, did he just do it? Like, I don't know, out of because he thought that he would get a quick buck from them, but like there's so much other stuff there that he
I
couldn't
guess,
pay
yeah,
for.
because presumably he's stolen prescription medication that Price kept under the baseboard behind the couch. But
Mhm.
then he also steals the baseball cards. So, like, because I'm genuinely wondering, but I suppose, because I haven't really thought too much about it, but I guess maybe it's just as simple as Nacho feels like if he goes and breaks in, gets the pills, but leaves the baseball cards, then um, Price will then assume that it's got to be Nacho or somebody working with Nacho
Mm.
because but if he takes other things of value, like the baseball cards, whether he wants them or not, because he hasn't sold any when Mike finally retrieves them,
Right.
that they're all
Yeah.
there because Price goes through it and he's like, oh, they're all there, right? Like he's looking for specific ones and they're all still there. So it seems like he does it to try to disguise the fact that it was him, that it was just any vandal who happened to
Mm.
break in, who just stole anything of value, and they just so happened upon these pills hidden behind the couch. I guess that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I still don't know. It's such an odd thing. Um, But my goodness, I love the police officers there, who are able to tell, instantly. They're like, the couch was moved. Like Price is just, I can't believe that he didn't push things back. I mean, I can believe it, but it's just like, really?
He's I mean, like, well, whether it's that or the ridiculous Hummer that he has in the driveway with his
Right.
ridiculous shoes. And what's his license plate now? Isn't it
Oh
like
man.
Playa?
Yeah, something like that.
Like,
Um,
it's
yeah.
absurd that everything about him, as Mike says, screams drug dealer.
Yeah.
And as Jimmy points out in season one, with the Kettlemans, right? That it's like I thought criminals would be smarter. Like,
Right.
like
Yeah.
Price is just such an idiot that they could, of course, see right through all of this.
Yeah.
Um, and then the way Mike doesn't want the police finding out what's going on, so then he stops Price, and then from going into the police station says, "I'll get your cards back, but it's going to cost you." So then Mike's able, like, Mike is doing really well in Albuquerque so far. He is making a lot of money because
Yeah.
he makes money from this deal because it then he charges Price to get the cards back, right?
Mm.
And so Price has to pay him for that. And then Price ends up getting his baseball cards back. But then he also has to give the Hummer to Nacho, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. But then from there, Nacho then hires Mike to kill Tuco. But then he ultimately doesn't do it, right? That he
Mm.
like gets into a fight to get Tuco arrested, right? This is again just a recap, but then Mike ends up making $50,000 from that, right?
Yeah.
He gives back half of it because then Hector Salamanca comes to Mike, because he's Tuco's uncle, and then he's like, "Hey, come on, like the gun wasn't his. Just tell them I don't care what you say. Just it wasn't my nephew's gun, right?"
Right.
And so then Tuco's not going to serve as long, and then like threatening his granddaughter, like they threaten his granddaughter with these twins who do show up in Breaking Bad, who are like the scariest dudes. They are like the scariest hitmen. Yeah,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about? The two guys who are totally silent in the suits.
Yes. Yeah. The guys who are like standing on the roof of that other building, just staring
Yes.
at the girl in the pool.
Yep.
Creepy.
And then points like the hand in a gun gesture
Yeah.
at her. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, they're super creepy.
Yeah.
So anyway, he ends up, you know, agreeing to change his story, and then he gets $50,000. So he already got 25,000 for getting Tuco in jail. Then he gets another 50,000 from the Salamancas for getting Tuco a lighter sentence,
Yeah.
right? Now he does like take that because initially then he had 50 and then another 50, but he gives back 25,000 to Nacho,
Right. Yeah.
right? I'm not getting the
Uh.
figures mixed up, am I?
No, because I think Nacho was going to pay him 25, and then, uh, yeah, the Salamancas
Okay.
give him the 50. So anyway, he's still up 50.
Yeah, at least 50. Yeah, he's made a good amount of money so far. And then this doesn't sit right with Mike at all, and it seems to be because they threatened his granddaughter, and that seems to be the thing more than anything else, that he could have let everything else go with the whole changing his story. And it's like, fine, whatever. I don't like the fact that like my reputation is not good because I'm a cop, and then like it's obvious that I'm taking a bribe from the cartel, because everybody knows that's obviously what's happening here. But at the same time, I don't know what prosecutors are supposed to do. It's like, if somebody gets into that kind of position, it's either change your story and accept the carrot, or you're going to get the stick, which is you or a family member is going to get killed, or like everyone in your family is going to get killed. Like, don't mess around with those people at all. So like, you know what I mean? I feel like a prosecutor, like, and the police can't really get mad. On the one hand, like, sure, but like, until you do something about, like, and I'm saying generally speaking, until like the cartel is dealt with, like, and I don't know where things stand right now, but I believe there's various cartels now, but it's such a mess with the whole Mexican drug everything, that unless that's dealt with, then, you know what I mean? You're just like, okay, I get it. Like, the gun wasn't his. Got it.
Right.
But then this doesn't sit right with Mike. So then he starts doing surveillance on them, figures out their entire system, or at least a good deal of their system, then even enlists his granddaughter to help him make I don't know, like
a tire spike.
Tire spike, like a rope spike. I don't know, something. Anyway, but a garden hose with a whole bunch of nails in it to be able to stop this truck. And then he kidnaps the driver, blah blah blah, and like, or not kidnaps him, but like ties him up, and then figures out pretty quickly where the money is, which is in one of the tires. So then he's made, and I was just looking on Wikipedia at an episode review, like, to just like remind myself of what happened in each episode, and like, it has a figure on there of $250,000 of what.
I thought that I remembered Nacho saying $250,000.
Like, okay, so I guess it was in one of the episodes. So $250,000, and going, Mike is doing really, really well in Albany. He has not been there all that long, and this dude is cleaning up. And then, of course, from there, he then tells Nacho that he's going to stop, because Nacho's like, hey, it's got, like, are you doing something? It's got to be you, blah, 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 right? Because you didn't kill the guy, and I know you're the only guy in town I know who has a vendetta against the Salamancas, but who doesn't like to kill, right? Because he leaves the driver alive. And instead of the driver getting killed, then the Good Samaritan who tries to help the driver is the one who ends up getting killed. So then that's kind of on Mike, where it's like, you just should have killed the driver for the cartel, because then just a completely innocent person ends up getting murdered as a result of this. And so, you don't want to murder the guy, but you know what I mean? The ethics get not great in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we get to, him tracking them down and getting ready to kill Salamanca.
Hector Salamanca.
And that is it's a great scene.
It's so great.
The way that they use sound
I was gonna say
for that scene, that it's so perfect, the way that it just goes from almost complete silence to just this loud yelling, screaming, all of this, and then cutting back to Mike, and you just hear like the crickets in the background or whatever they are, and then the crickets go silent. And you're like, there's something. And then you start hearing the horn. It's so brilliant.
It is. It's so well done. And I was gonna bring this up, that the sound design throughout Better Call Saul is absolutely brilliant. And one of the things that I love about Vince Gilligan, and I'm attributing it to him, but I'm sure that there's plenty of other people, including the sound engineer and editor and directors of episodes and writers and a whole bunch of cast and crew members, I'm sure, are responsible for this. But the sound design is just so ridiculously well done, and specifically the scenes involving Mike and the scenes involving the drug trade. And what I love about the sound design on this show is the fact that there is so much appreciation for the patience and intelligence of the audience that any director at this point who is unafraid of silence in a film or TV show basically immediately has my respect, because we are inundated with ridiculous over-the-top sound design of you can't have a moment of silence, you have to set the tone with your background music in every single scene, and there always has to be some kind of sound going on, and if it's not characters who are speaking over top of each other, then there has to be some kind of musical montage, and then there has to be something in the background. I mean, just watch an episode of, and I'm not trying to pick on this show in particular because it's just I don't watch what I call like bad TV. So there's, I'm sure, relevant shows that are on TV right now that I just don't watch. But like, for instance, if you watch CSI, like the sound design on any of those shows, it's constant. There's never any silence.
Right. Yeah.
But in Better Call Saul, there are long stretches where there's no dialogue and no non-diegetic sound. It's just diegetic sound, like just the sound of whatever Mike is doing, like him scrubbing the hose and, the television's on in the background and him pushing the nails through the hose and driving out and following them and observing them in his car. There's no extra sound. Like with Jimmy watching like the wacky waving arm flailing inflatable tube man, then it's, this great funk song going on. Right. And it's this great sequence. So you have amazing sound design there too, but it's just saturated with sound and then cutting into like the dialogue and all of that. But with Mike, it is so quiet. And the way those two things get paired, the busy world of these law firms where everybody's talking, there's so much sound going on in the offices, at HHM, the sound of that elevator, like every time it opens its doors, and you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like even the elevator has got a unique sound. So it's not a show that's silent. It's that it's silent when it comes to the drug aspect of the show. Yeah. And it's very loud and filled with interesting sound design when you're dealing with the law firms.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah. And on the note of the whole drug trade and all that, the opening shot of that one episode that I believe was all done, using a drone. The one that I'm talking about, the one where you follow the truck
at the border?
Yes.
At the US-Mexico border? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that is so incredible. Just this long take that with these, impossible camera moves.
I'm assuming that it was a drone as well. I gotta say, like, drones for the film and television industry have just, like, I'm so happy.
Yeah.
when I first started seeing drone shots, I'm like, that's cheating. That's a drone shot. And at this point, I'm just like, this is wonderful. This is so amazing.
Because you're able to go from these, wide, expansive shots to being really close to somebody in the same shot, in the same. And it's just, it works so well. I love it. It is so brilliant that whole thing is done. Like, it's all one long take.
Yeah. Now, you're right. And I love that scene as well. And to see what's going on at the border, I've got a couple, I have one question and then one quibble. Okay.
Okay.
So my question is, where do you think my cat is trying to knock everything off? Constantly having to adjust things, it keeps readjusting. So, like, where did they film that? Like, it can't. Surely it can't actually be at a border crossing, at a port of entry. But they also could not possibly have built all of that just for this show.
Huh.
Because, like, unless it's just, like, I don't know, because it's AMC, but I don't think that there's a big studio that's, like, co-producing this.
Yeah, I don't think
Like,
so.
co-financing it. So it just, I know they spend a ton of money on each episode. I forget what it is, but it's like $1 million an episode is their budget. It's something along those lines. So they do have a really big budget, but not that big, because that's a lot.
Right.
For only one part of an episode. And it's not like, because I'm just saying, that's only one scene. It's not like this entire show is taking place at a port of entry like that, at an actual border crossing. So it's like, yeah, just build it. So, but you can't shut it down to film that. Like, they can't shut down a port of entry to say, because we want to film this sequence with a drone and we're going to pretend like drugs are coming in, and we'll show exactly how we would catch drugs and how they could get through border control. Like, and they're like, deal, we'll show how incompetent we are. You've got the run of the place. Like, so
yeah, that's always been my question. I'm like, really? This is
are we sure we should be showing this?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And
I just couldn't help but wonder the entire time, because it looks really realistic, but and there's a lot of vehicles there.
Yeah, unless they're unless it's a former port of entry or something.
Maybe.
That, like, it's no longer in service, and so they were able to, use it for that.
Or maybe like another like studio had built it, and then they just didn't tear it down, and they were able to, pay to use it or something. I don't know. If anybody knows, please let us know, because I'm genuinely curious, because I watched that, and part of me, like, and I don't know why, in part because I am in particular focused on, screenwriting at the moment. So I'm thinking a lot about like production, but just as a viewer, then I watch it and I'm just thinking, how did they do this? Where are they filming? This can't possibly be a port of entry, but they couldn't possibly have built this thing either, because this is just too big. It's wonderful, but it's like almost too wonderful, where it makes me wonder, because it's not CGI. I guess that's the thing, and that's one of the things that I love about Better Call Saul, is that it's so grounded. It's all practical effects and practical sets, that you never watch the show and go, oh, that's just a green screen in the background. I mean, I can't think of a single time watching the show where I've ever even had that question in my mind.
No, it's
because, as far as I know, there, like, Vince Gilligan is pretty old school with that. He even with Breaking Bad, then he was filming on actual film, not digitally, and it costs a lot more to do that. And I listened to an interview with him when he was talking about this, and he said that he insisted on it, and the studio was like, dude, just use digital. There's no difference. You can't see a difference between one or the other. And then he's like, no, it needs to be filmed. Like, we're filming, the beautiful desert out in New Mexico, and you've got these like wonderful cinematic shots that it needs to be filmed. And they're like, so like they spent more. AMC spent more in order for him to shoot on film. And so it's like he's kind of old school like that. And then with Better Call Saul, then he does shoot digitally. I remember I think it was Mark Maron who was talking to him, and he asked him, he's like, when you watch it, could you, like, because what they did is they forced him to shoot it both digitally and with actual film. And then they got him to try to tell the difference. And then Mark Maron asked him, he's like, well, could you tell the difference? He's like, no. And he's like, and he's so disappointed, because it's like, you want to be able to see the difference. You want to say, no, film really is better. But he just couldn't see the difference. So he's like, fine, we'll go digital. So they now shoot digitally. So, but aside from that, it's like, it's practical effects. It's not green screen. It's not CGI. So anyway, so that was kind of my question. And then my quibble with it is the driver. So he takes a popsicle, right?
Yeah.
Takes a popsicle from the box and he puts it in his mouth. And then he drives down the road, and then he's still got part of the popsicle, right? So he has the last little bit of it, and then he walks out to where the rock is, where he can then go and get his gun, because, you know, you're not going to bring a weapon across the border, but they leave one for him, right? So that way he's got protection, et cetera, right? That's basically what's happening here. And then he sticks the popsicle stick into the dirt, which seems like not a good idea, for one thing. Yeah. But my question is, because then it says 10 miles, so he's obviously driven 10 miles. My question is, Mexico moving into New Mexico, how is it possible that you could drive for 10 miles without that popsicle entirely melting?
It's a great question.
I know I'm focused entirely on the right thing here. This is exactly. Yeah. I'm asking all the right questions.
Do we want to talk about the drone? Nah, we're good. Let's move on to the popsicle.
This is the real issue.
Yeah, no, it is a good point.
All that if I directed the episode, the only thing that I'm saying is I would have had him with the popsicle stick still in his mouth, but just kind of like the popsicle's long gone. But he's just kind of like chewing on it like a really big, toothpick, right?
Yeah.
Because I've done that. A lot of people like do that when you finish with a popsicle. You just kind of you just chew on it, like just to distract yourself or whatever. That's all it was. But he comes out and he's still like got a little bit of like the actual popsicle. Like, now wait just a minute here.
Yeah. I mean, my quibble with that was like, he just took a popsicle out of this box. Like, he didn't pay for it or anything, Like, it's like, I guess he works for the company where, like, obviously he does actually work for the company, like, where it's going to show up or whatever. But it's just like, but you just took product.
Yeah, okay. But it's because he delivers it, because I'm pretty sure that the truck has got the same name as the store that they're in. Mm-hmm. And so he's obviously delivering it for the cartel company that's got this store as its front, and with like the ice cream and frozen treats and whatever. But in my head, because I did have that question the first time I watched it, but I just immediately in my head just went, oh, he would just say it's some guard at the border who does it every time to be a jerk.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
But then him sticking the popsicle sticks in the ground right by where the gun is, though, that's a dead giveaway that it's him.
Right. Yeah. No, because I was wondering, like, why the guards at the border aren't like, what are you doing? Why are you always eating a popsicle out of one of the boxes here?
Yeah. I mean, that is a question, but I feel like the U.S. border guards would just be like, if this guy wants to get in trouble, like, that's on him.
I guess that's fair. And then the only other thing that I have to say is maybe he ate more than one popsicle.
Yeah,
like,
it could be. No, you're right. It could be that he's just chowing down, and that's like his third or fourth. Yeah, maybe. Now, I don't know, and if anybody's a truck driver who can actually answer this question, I'm curious about this as well. But our dad is a truck driver, and he does Canada, US. He crosses the border all the time. And so he has told me, though, that when he's got a van like that, where the actual tractor, it's a van, right? Like a cargo van where it's got the door on the back and all that, you can't get in there, that when you're crossing the border, what they do is it's totally sealed up. Not only does it have a lock, but it's then got like a zip tie on there with like a number. So that way he can't, if he opened it up, then when he gets to his destination, they'd be like, whoa, somebody's been in here. Somebody's tampered with this, right? And that he doesn't even have the ability to get into it, which does help, because that way he can't be accused of smuggling something, right? Because it's like, I can't even get in there. I just pull the thing, but I can't get in. But I wonder if it's different at the U.S.-Mexico border, because that's what I'm saying. It's like, I know what happens with the Canadian U.S. border, but I don't know about the U.S.-Mexico border, because they're just up, like in the truck, like opening it up, and there didn't seem to be any issue at all. Anyway, if a truck driver who has any experience or somebody who knows, please let us know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I know. I mean, because I think that Dad has said that like they'll like cut it off at the border in order to inspect the load, and then I'll put on a new one. But
Okay.
but yeah, like I
Okay.
didn't really see them, put on a new one, or even if there was one originally. So I'm just like,
No.
eh. Again, we
And
are really focused on the important details
and it could
here.
just be that it's a TV show. This was not a documentary.
Yeah.
So okay. I give up. I'll stop.
Okay. Gosh, turning into cinema sins over there.
No, it's not. I'm not saying that this is some kind of failure in some way.
You
It's
went
just
10
I'm
miles with the same popsicle in New Mexico?
that's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
I just want a real answer. That's all. I'm not saying
Right.
therefore it's bad. I'm going explain it. Just give me some kind of explanation, please.
Right.
I don't care
Yeah.
how ridiculous it is, but help me to have this, suspension of disbelief.
Yeah. Um, yeah. All right. So I don't know if you have anything else really that you want to talk about with this, because like a lot of stuff happens, but I don't want to do like an exhaustive deep dive into this or anything. And we've done, I think, a pretty good job.
I think so too. I guess just to finish up with Mike, just in terms of what happens with him, like, I mean, I think I've already given my answer to the question, but why is it that you think that he doesn't give up on Hector Salamanca? Because
Uh,
he's earned so much money. Like I
Right.
say, like he's now earned just from Hector alone, he's earned like $300,000. And
Yeah.
obviously he wants that money to take care of his granddaughter. But at the same time, then you look at it and you're like, but you know, like
You're
what is
putting them in more danger.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Continuing to mess around with the cartel, like just get out while you can before you draw any more suspicion from them. Just be grateful for what you got from them. But
Yeah.
instead, he's not even trying to get more. It's like and I guess because the way he explains it to Nacho is that, like, Nacho is saying, like, oh, you wanted the cops to show up? Like, because he's saying, like, why wasn't it in the news? Right? Mike is
Hmm.
asking him that question. He's like, you wanted the cops to show up? And I guess it's because, do you suppose that it's that Mike wants to try to shut down the cartel in Albuquerque in part because his daughter-in-law she's got PTSD from shootings in Philadelphia because her husband was shot, and then the idea that there's like these cartel members who are absolute murderous guys who are what I mean, they'll kill anybody to keep the business going. He doesn't like the fact that they're in Albuquerque where she is. Do you suppose that's what it is?
Yeah, I think that's the main thing that he's just um yeah, trying to, you know, see justice served sort of thing. And
Yeah.
I mean like it's difficult because, he's like he talks about, like cops not being, all good, and like criminals not being all bad. But
Yeah.
then I think that it's that he has learned enough to know that this particular cartel, or in particular Hector Salamanca, is just a bad guy. um,
Yes.
so I think that that's part of it, and it's also, yeah, I mean, kind of just, you know, kind of revenge sort of thing.
Yeah, but like he got I understand. It's like I guess I'm saying, like, if somebody wants to point a finger gun, not an actual gun, but a finger gun at one of my loved ones, and then in return I get $250,000, I'm like, you can use both hands. I don't even care. You can do like the double patoo patoo. That's
You could
fine.
do a
Like
Tommy gun sort of thing.
that's right. Sniper rifle, whatever you want. Whatever you want. I feel like he got just compensation for the fact
Right.
for the fact that some like a couple of like psychos, one of them like pointed a gun at his granddaughter. That
Right. Yeah.
he took the money, he changed his story. The cartel's not interested in him anymore. I feel like he got just compensation. He's
Yeah.
done. but he's not done. And I guess the thing is that he could give a tip to the DEA. This is a tie into Breaking Bad, but he can call up Hank Schrader at the DEA in Albuquerque and just say, hey, like an anonymous tip, send a letter or whatever. Like, this is exactly how they're doing it. This is like Hector Salamanca, and he's got this frozen fruit store, like treats, like with fruit and whatever, this store, and they deliver it on these trucks and they hide it here and blah, 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 blah. Right? Like, he could have, but he's Mike and he doesn't, right? He's kind of this lone wolf who has a distrust of the establishment.
Yeah, like vigilante justice.
Yeah. I guess I'm saying, and maybe it's just Mike's naivete at this point, and maybe because I've watched enough shows about the cartel, but I just feel like it should be pretty obvious to somebody like Mike that even if you kill, like if you assassinate Salamanca, Hector, like somebody else is just going to come and take his place. You are not going to get the cartel out of your town by killing one member. That will not work.
Right.
That the only thing that would work, and even then it seems like it's often a losing battle, is to get the full resources of the DEA, of a federal like department, to like justice department to come after the person, like, or to come after the cartel, to give them much information, because you need lots of resources. It can't just be one person who goes after them, because they're just way too big. So that's why I'm like, is it just this personal thing, or is it him genuinely trying to get rid of the cartel? Because if it's a personal thing, I get it, that he wants to just take out Hector, and he'll allow the cartel to continue to exist. He doesn't care who replaces him, because whoever replaces him didn't get involved personally with his family, or what?
I think that's it. But yeah, I know it is a little. I like the fact that it's a little unclear as to
me
what
too.
his.
Me too. I love
what
that.
Mike's motivations are there.
Right, but I'm saying, like, that's one of the things that I absolutely love about Vince Gilligan as a showrunner. And again, I don't know exactly who should get the credit for this, but I'm saying one of the things that I love about his writing and his approach is that Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are grown-up shows. They are not shows for teenagers. I'm sure some teenagers watch them and enjoy both shows, but they are shows that are meant for adults who have patience, who do not need to get all of the answers. They don't need simple solutions. They and you can create a complex character like Mike, where he is so stoic. He, you know what I mean? He has like nothing in his house. He seems to have no real attachments. He is quiet. He doesn't allow his emotions to dictate his actions, right? He's very stoic in that way. And so as a result, we don't know what he's thinking much of the time. And he remains pretty enigmatic. And I think that's a good thing, because it's compelling, because you're watching and you're trying to watch for all these subtle little clues of why is it that he's doing what he's doing. And it's so silent, even Jimmy at times goes silent when he's, putting together, like it's not explicit of, this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to do this. It's just we watch him do it. But Jimmy, it's always satisfying because we ultimately get to see his ultimate plan. But Mike, it's far less so. It's much more, you're just going to be in the dark with us, for a while.
Right.
And I love that because I trust that that there is some reasoning in his head, even if we don't know what it is.
Yeah. No, absolutely. All right. Well, I guess before we wrap up, I did want to point out that, I love Jimmy's, plan with the switching the numbers
Yeah.
on all those documents. It's so well done, and the fact that he knows how to do this, and that Chuck explains it because you're just like, how did Jimmy come up with this? And then Chuck is like,
Right.
oh, he used to do fake IDs, and it's like, oh, okay, well that helps me to understand how he knows how to do this, and that he is so careful, so precise with it. Oh,
And
it's brilliant.
it shows the growth of his character too, because at the beginning of the episode with Rebecca, then it's his first week in the mailroom, and he talks about how the photocopier is so confusing, and it's not just
Right.
go in and push a button.
Yeah.
But then when he goes into the copy shop, when Chuck is passed out, when he's unconscious, then he's like, I'm going to need, I forget what he says, but I think he's like, I'm going to need hammer mill, number whatever. I'm going to need your best copier. I'm going to need an X-Acto knife, a ruler, and all this stuff that he knows the exact paper type
Right.
that HHM uses in order to match the paper type. He knows like exactly, he knows those machines so well, so intimately, that it shows that he's learned a lot.
Right.
That it's a new, he's becoming a new kind of con man, right, or con artist, and that it's
Yeah.
just he's developing new skills that he did not have when he first showed up in Albuquerque.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Um, and the other thing that I wanted to mention is I feel so bad for the second year associate at H and what is it? H and
HHM,
M?
yeah.
No, 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 sorry, not HHM. Um,
Oh,
uh,
Davis of Maine.
yes, yes, thank you. Davison, Maine. She's like, I don't know, she's doing her best, and I don't know, I appreciate everything that she's doing, and I feel bad that we're not going to get more of her because he's just like not at Davis and Maine anymore, and I'm like, ah, because she was, I don't know, she seemed like such a good almost foil, you know?
Yes, she's definitely a good foil to Jimmy. Like one of my favorite parts is when, she's there and it's so late and she's saying, "Oh, well, we have to make these, like I made all these edits on, it's like the in-house style guide of how we like prepare documents, and you just made all these mistakes. So we need to go and fix it, and it's really late." He's like,
Yeah.
"Let me just get my pen. I'll be right there." And then he just leaves, like
Yeah.
as a passive aggressive flex, as you put it. Like that's one of my favorite things ever. He just
Yeah.
does not care. And yeah, like it is she's a great foil to him. And it it seems like there was a lot of gas left in that tank, right?
Yes. Yeah.
They could have got a lot more out of that pairing of the two of them.
Mhm.
Um, and the since we're on this topic, and because I think that we should address this, is the way Kim, in that moment, in the big scene where Chuck is explaining exactly what Jimmy did, right? Because he figures out exactly what he did. And Kim takes Jimmy's side and says, Chuck, like, do you hear yourself? Like, you can't admit that you made a mistake. You've come up with this elaborate plot because of this, that, and everything else, because you just can't possibly admit that you could ever make a mistake. And it's obvious what's happened. You're working by oil, light and all of that, like with those oil lanterns. Um, and then they get out of the house, and immediately she hits Jimmy because she
Yeah.
knows that that's exactly what Jimmy did. But she's in such an interesting position throughout this season that she recognizes Jimmy for who he is, for the fact that he is dishonest but not a bad person.
Right.
um,
Yeah.
Knowing that professionally she needs to separate herself from him, but personally she can trust him,
Yeah.
and that she will defend him even if it puts her own reputation at stake, because she, like, you can tell, like, it's all these things that are said without ever being said explicitly.
Hmm.
um, like
Yeah.
like from a story perspective, from a screenwriting perspective, like I'm absolutely in awe of what goes on with this show. I mean,
Absolutely.
the way
Yeah.
that's established, and it's so obvious that she knows without saying that she knows. And then even when they're in bed together, like later
Yeah.
that night, then she's saying, Chuck's really smart. If there's some way, if there's some loose end, He'll figure it out because she's saying, hey, dummy, you probably left evidence somewhere. Go to that copy shop and pay off the guy who's working there, without saying that. And it never gets explained to us, the viewers, but it's so obvious that this is the kind of mature, sophisticated writing that obviously millions of people can follow without any trouble at all. And it's something that is so absent from network television.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I love her, compromise, as it were, of not Wexler McGill, but Wexler and McGill, and the way that she presents it and everything. Like, that in and of itself is just brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Jimmy spent so long, working on this whole thing,
I know,
setting it up, and then, she's able to compromise. In this little way, because she does. She wants to work with Jimmy, but she doesn't want to work with Jimmy.
That's right. And she knows that it would be unwise to do so. Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, that shows that she does have good judgment, because she has good judgment about him personally, and she has good judgment about him professionally, and knowing where to trust him and where not to trust him. And it's this really interesting intimacy that they have as a result of that. It's so well done and so well written, and the dynamics between the characters. I don't even really know how to describe what the show is, because it's multiple things all at once. It's jumping from, not even jumping, it's like blending all of these genres and just weaving between them. And it's wonderful. It is one of the best things written on television today. I'm so happy that we have it. I don't get to say that very often on the podcast. I said that at the end when we stopped recording with season 1. I'm like, did you not notice how I didn't say one negative thing for the entire podcast? Right. And that like so rarely happens. And that, but this is like, I want more of this. Please, just people, produce more of this.
Yeah. And on that note, I did look it up, and apparently season 6 is going to be the last season for Better Call Saul. So
that's good. I like when I'm saying I want more of this, I'm saying I want more shows like Better Call Saul that are written as well as it is, but not, I want Better Call Saul specifically to go on for 30 years, because I don't want that at all.
Right. That would be so confusing.
It's just Bob Odenkirk is like 80 years old, and he's like, hey, still it's my 40th Heisenberg birthday. Yet. That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't want it to go on forever. So 6 seasons sounds good, because they're in season 5 now, and then 6 seasons sounds like it'll be good. All right. Well, we brought up multiple things that you can comment on below. So feel free to comment on any of those things, because we did ask specific questions. And what did you think of season 2 of Better Call Saul? And in general, just thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Ignore the bell, people. We're going to keep going. We're still ignoring it. Don't worry. I don't know what that... I think that's the fire drill. All right. We're going to go home. Yeah, all right. We're done.